भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैवं नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरते नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवति उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकीम्। हरे कृष्णा। आदिदैत्यो सहसा व्यजमानात्मा पौरुषा विवृधाते स्म सारेण कायेनाद्रिपति इव तवादिदैत्यो सहसा व्यजमानात्मपौरुषा विवृधाते स्म सारेण कायेनाद्रिपति इव त्वादिदैत्यो सहसा व्यजमानात्मपौरुषा विवृधाते स्म सारेण कायेनाद्रिपति इव. Synonyms, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Tao, those two, Adi-Daitya, demons in the beginning of creation. Sahasa, quickly. Vyajyamana, being manifest. Atma, own. Paurusha, prowess. Vavridhate, grew. Ashmasharena, steel-like. Kayana, with bodily frames. Adripati, two great mountains. Eva, like. Translation. These two demons who appeared in ancient times soon began to exhibit uncommonly bodily features. They had steel-like frames which began to grow just like two great mountains. Purport. There are two classes of men in the world. One is called the demon and the other is called the demigod. The demigods concern themselves with the spiritual upliftment of human society, whereas the demons are concerned with physical and material upliftment. The two demons born of Deity began to make their bodies as strong as iron frames, and they were so tall that they seemed to touch outer space. They were decorated with valuable ornaments, and they thought that this was a success in life. Originally, it was planned that Jaya and Vijaya, the two doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, were to take birth in this material world, where, by the curse of the sages, they were to play the part of always being angry with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As demoniac persons, they became so angry that they were not concerned with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but simply with physical comforts and physical upliftment. Hare Krishna. Om Ajnantimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapatakamallam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parichana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishnavanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaur Bhakta Brinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So thank you everybody once again for your time and joining this morning's Katha. So we will examine a little bit more about Srila Prabhupada's purport and how we can put it into context and practice it in our day-to-day lives. So our learning focus is we'll understand the characteristics of the demons and demigods. Coming from a Hindu background, we are familiar with different Devi Devatas. There are 33 crore Devi Devatas. And it was always a confusion for me as a child. Who is God? On one end, you say God is one. But then even Rama is God, even Ganapati is God. And so much so that in modern times, there are different saints, great people, but they've been elevated to God status, and even rascals who have started calling themselves Bhagwan, and they become Bhagwan. So that was always a confusion as to who is God. And coming in contact with ISKCON, reading Prabhupada's books, that's the first time I read this word demigod. And that put everything into perspective. Demigod. So there is only one God. And whatever else we consider, whether it is Shri Ganesha, whether it is, of course, Lord Rama is also incidentally God, it's his avatar. But these expansions, avatars, demigods, saints, bogus people, everything was put into one pot and it was called God. So Prabhupada has clarified this demigod, and demigods, we'll understand it a little bit more. What are their characteristics and what are the characteristics of the demons? So once we understand that, what it would mean, we have knowledge, like Krishna Namanand Prabhu always says, information is meant for transformation. So how could we develop godly traits? Not God, no one can ever be God, but how we could be God-like, demigod, those swabhav, that quality. And then we'll also understand that in that, how Shravanam helps. So this is instructions of Romapad Maharaj to an answer to a question, knowledge versus seva, what is more important? So this we'll try and do it in the next 20 minutes or so. And of course, if there are any question, answers, discussions, it can always be taken on the Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya forum. Hare Krishna. So the characteristics of demons and demigods. First, let us understand what are the similarities. Yesterday I was reading Prabhupada Leelamrit, and Prabhupada's visit to Australia. He goes to a school, and then one child, he asks, do you know the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So one child comes and answers about 12-year-old, 10, 12-year-old boy that, oh, this is, we can realize God through our unconsciousness. So Prabhupada asked him, what is unconsciousness? So he said, unconsciousness is the id in psychoanalysis. It's the ego. And over there we can, through self-realization. Now, for such a child, it is really marvelous to be understanding these highly philosophical concepts. So Prabhupada said, but then do you know what is consciousness? In absence of consciousness, how would you be able to understand unconsciousness? So here also, when we understand the characteristics of the demons and demigods, we need to know both what are the similarities and the differences. So in the similarities, we can see that both are jivas, and jivas we know are part and parcel of Krishna. So they can never have supremacy over Krishna. There's only one, Ishwar Parama Krishna. There's only one, and everyone are his parts and parcels. So both are jivas. Both are embodied with a material form. When we talk about demons and demigods, they're embodied with a material form, and material form has this birth, old age, disease, death cycle. Both are residents of this material world, Shrishti. There are several universes and planets. So both are residents of this material world, and they possess phenomenal capacities and capabilities. Siddhis, strength, beauty, whatever it be, phenomenal. Like you and I are ordinary jivas, and we also are jivas. We also are the first top three is applicable to us also. However, the fourth point, extraordinary capabilities and strength. So we know from the pastime of Hiranyakashipu, he would just lift one eyebrow, just one eyebrow he would lift, and the entire universe, material creation would tremble. That was the level of his strength. Mystic powers, Ravana, 10 heads. Lord Rama kept cutting off the heads with his arrows. Another one kept popping up. So they are extraordinary. So whatever we can think here, we know of the strongest man, the most beautiful person, the most wealthy, is insignificant compared to the uh, demigods and the demons. So this is the similarity between both. Now let's see what is the differences. Now the differences, we'll understand the characteristics, main points, and then how it applies to the demon and what is different with the demigod. So for the same characteristic, how a demon contrasts with the demigod. So you see, first one is personality. A demon has malevolent, bad intention, evil. Whereas it's opposite with the demigod. They're kind. They want to do something good for the others. Now, their nature is Bhagavad Gita class. We are understanding the three modes of material nature. So their nature is ignorance and passion, mainly dominated by ignorance and passion. However, a demigod has passion and ignorance. So we can understand, of course, we know that passion is like a buffer between goodness and ignorance. So someone in the mode of passion has, how do you say, a mixture of goodness and of ignorance also is this passion. And what they do, the activities is, he's always in terms of material pursuits, the demigod. He wants more fame, he wants more money, he wants to be more beautiful, he wants to be more famous. He means he himself or whatever it is, those in contact with him. Whereas a demigod has a higher purpose, spiritual. He goes beyond the body and he goes to the spirit soul. So pursuits of spiritual knowledge, self-realization, which is actually constructive. Now, if you see why material pursuits are destructive, is because it binds the jiva into this law of karma, the cycle of karma, whereas spiritual pursuits liberates. So material pursuits further binds us into this karma. You may ask, what is wrong with karma? Repeated cycle, that's the nature of things. No, that's not the nature of things. The spirit, who we are, is eternal. And, why put it in something which is temporary? So then their outlook, all this happens because the demon is self-centered, whereas the demigod, as Prabhupada's purport explains, is for the upliftment. They always will think of the other. Upliftment. Of course, there's another category, demon, demigod, and Vaishnava. A Vaishnava is even higher than a demigod, even higher. Dasa, Dasa, Das, Anudas. Servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. That is the highest title. Being the servant in a material world is considered menial. Everyone wants to be a master. But in the spiritual world, since the material world is ulta, the reflected, perverted reflection, everyone wants to be the servant of the servant of the servant. And that's the highest, that's the aspiration, the highest title or role that the jiva, because that's where he's in his natural state. And consciousness, of course, they'll either be ignorant, ignore, couldn't care less, atheist, agnostic, doesn't matter to me. Krishna is there, Krishna is not there. Or they will oppose. They will come with all their ammunition to oppose and cause trouble. It's not just in Ramayana we read, and in the scriptures we read how the demons used to trouble the devotees. They used to have fire sacrifices in the day gone by the rishis, the sages, and they used to come and put stool and all abominable substance in such a pure and clean area, just disturb them. But the same thing is happening even in modern times now. It's just that it has changed the conditions. If you look around, it is so difficult to pursue devotional practices. That's the nature. My Guru Maharaj, Srila Radhanath Swami, he says the Kali Yuga is such that it is very easy to do the wrong thing and very difficult to do the right thing. So the consciousness of a demon is someone who will either be couldn't care less, or he'll actively be opposing Krishna. And if we look at the demigods, they're all the time dovetailing everything, tan man dhan, in service of Krishna and Krishnas. Krishna and Krishnas. Of course, Krishna says, the person who worships my devotee is more dear to me. He is the devotee, not someone who comes directly to me. So that's what the demigods, and see how the demigods serve. They are Krishna's administrator. There's a demigod who is there in charge of blinking our eyelids. We know the eyelids blink to protect, to keep it water moist, the eyeball, things like that. Even for that, there is a demigod in charge of that. There's a demigod who's in charge of putting us to sleep, to waking us for so many functions, so many functions. There are demigods for rain, there are demigods for wind, for sea, each and every little thing. That's the service they're doing for the mankind. And they provide all these facilities to make it easier, to facilitate the Jivatma for his spiritual upliftment, to pull him out of this material condition and bring him up to a spiritual platform. So these are the similarities, Prabhu's, Mataji's, and differences and characteristics of the Devi Devtas and the demon. So how do we develop these godly traits? Back to Krishnanam Prabhu's information is meant for transformation. What is that transformation? That transformation is from self-consciousness to Krishna consciousness. That's the transformation. So we already have consciousness. We just need to change that consciousness. How do you do it? We do it through sadhu sangha. If you want to be a drunkard, there's no university or anything. You just go to places and associate with people who become drunkards. You want to be a successful businessman, associate. So they have these networking events, they have these business forums and so forth. And you associate with them, you develop their quality. There's that very famous saying, tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are, whom you associate with. That's where you get. And what happens in the sadhu sangha? The sadhu sangha, you get the guidance and the shelter. Shelter, as His Holiness Dhanodhar Swami Maharaj has said, is where all your needs can be met. All your needs can be met. Not just your physical needs, your emotional needs, your spiritual needs, everything can be met. That is a place of shelter. And Krishna is the only real shelter. Everything else is half-baked. It's just half-baked. We take shelter of money, we take shelter of family, we take shelter of laws, rules, regulations, all half-baked. Works to a certain extent, but not fully, and it will disappoint you. So Sadhu Sangha provides this shelter. Why? Because Sadhu Sangha is nothing. The Vaishnava is nothing but the mercy representation of Krishna. So if you're trying to be Krishna consciousness, go to people who are already Krishna consciousness. They're trying to be Krishna conscious, and that You get this guidance, you get the inspiration. Oh, Baba, don't do this, try this, Oh, Prabhuji, I'm finding it so difficult to do this. Yes, it is difficult, but this is what you can do. So that is the transformation, the first thing to do. The second is knowledge. And this is very important. We will talk a little bit about this, the knowledge aspect of it, what Romapad had said. Knowledge, obviously, is from a bona fide source, reading, hearing, and sharing. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj has said that even if then, Mahaprabhu's instructions, Yare dekhe taro kaho Krishna Upadesh, whomever you see, you speak about the message of Krishna. So Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj has instructed, even if there is no one, you preach to the walls. Even you go in an empty room, you preach to the walls. That is the importance of sharing Krishna conscious. If we have shared Krishna today, all of us are here in ISKCON, all of us are trying to transform our consciousness, is simply because someone has shared it. They didn't sit insular holding it. They shared it. Mahaprabhu shared it by giving the highest treasure. No qualification, nothing, no consideration. Here, come take everything. So it is incumbent on all of us. We may think that, oh, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to speak. My knowledge is not good. I'm imperfect. I have so many anarthas. No, do it, whatever you hear. That empowerment happens. You may think it is magic. But in one sense, it is magic. When we have the intention, just an intention, Krishna makes the facilities. He makes everything available. So when we have the knowledge, important than knowledge is putting it into practice, where you need discipline, do's and don'ts. Follow it stringently. Follow it stringently. What are the do's, what are the don'ts? And then you have the seva, obviously. Seva is the practical application of knowledge. And this is next is, slide is Romapad Maharaj's beautiful answer. Also, if you people are interested, devotees, you can subscribe to his digest, the question answers on all practical issues and applications of Krishna consciousness. So here is how Shravanam. Shravanam is hearing, but reading is also included in Shravanam. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Shravanam. So knowledge versus seva. The question is, the depth and width of spiritual topics is unlimited and at times confusing. It is easier to engage in service because these everyday acts that we are accustomed to are simply being directed to Krishna. Self-explanatory, correct? For example, basic act of cooking and eating is transformed to the process of bhoga and prasadam. There's no additional effort. We eat, very good. You're eating, eat prasadam. You're cooking, cook for Krishna, bhoga. However, to remember shlokas seems strenuous, especially with undisciplined minds occupied with other matters, or forgetfulness that comes with aging. So, yeah, to learn, as they say, you can't teach old dog new tricks. So when a child is really small and they engage in Krishna consciousness, then, there's no chance of them forgetting because the mind is super fresh. The memory powers, everything is fantastic. And as you grow older, that's the nature of material things. It starts diminishing over here. So is it okay to understand the basic philosophy and engage in seva is also necessary to gain more and more knowledge? So here's Romapad Maharaj's answer. Srila Prabhupada has given us complete package, chanting, hearing, reading, seva. All these activities support each other. When we chant, it is a humble prayer to the internal potency of the Lord to keep us engaged in Krishna's service. Reading Prabhupada's books daily helps us remind the mood in which we should render. So important. Reading helps us in mood. If we just do seva, service, due to our condition, there's a risk of developing that the consciousness of being the doer and expecting credit or recognition that we have rendered Krishna, and that spoils the purpose and the mood of whatever we are doing. How important it is to see the books. It's not just knowledge. It is to build a channel in which we can do the seva, the proper mood. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati tad aham bhakti upahritam ashnami prayatatmana. What Krishna says, offer me food, offer me fruit, leaf, water, correct? With love and devotion, with love and devotion. In absence of that, Krishna is not going to accept it. In absence of love. And so when we read these books, we know how to do it. Otherwise, oh, I'm doing it for Krishna. I am doing this for Krishna. Oh, I'm giving class. Oh, I have cooked such nice bhoga and everyone is enjoying the prasadam. So it's just like it becomes it defeats the purpose. The purpose of spiritual knowledge is to bring us closer to Krishna. Knowledge guides us to cultivate proper consciousness. This one, knowledge guides us to do proper consciousness while doing practical services. Spiritual knowledge directs us to satisfy the desires of Krishna through practical engagements in his service, loving service. Without practical application, theoretical knowledge is of little value. One may not have inclination to dive very deep into commentaries of previous acharyas, but we should never give up or stop reading Prabhupada's books daily. Read Prabhupada's books daily. Yes, we come in the morning, we listen to Bhagavatam, great. Listening is also Shravanam, correct? But reading is also necessary, otherwise that process remains incomplete. Thinking I know the philosophy and that is enough for me. No, we may have a basic understanding. Our understanding is always incomplete, always, whether you're one day or whether you're 30 years, 50 years in Krishna consciousness. It's such a vast subject. And, it's not, don't take it lightly. Now I know. Thinking is enough for me. And of course, if you're interested, you all can read Prabhupada's specific instructions. Go to Veda Base and look up morning walks, look up transcripts on this thing about reading Prabhupada's books. If you can't memorize these shlokas, what Maharaj says is repetition and recitation. And it can happen over time. So take one particular shloka, keep repeating it, okay? And then recite it verbally. Loudly, not in the mind. Okay. Memory can be refined later. And when you read Prabhupada's books, that helps. Reading the books is a journey, it's a process. It takes time to work on the heart and mind to create transformation. The reason we read is to transform our hearts rather than just gather information. Back to Krishna Namanand Prabhu's instruction. Information is meant for transformation. Here, Romapad Maharaj is explaining further how that transformation happens. How it happens, you can have gathered so far that it happens by reading books. Let that book not just collect dust on the shelf which is there. Make it a point. Please vow that at least, I'll read at least one verse, one page, whatever you can do. Get started slowly. That will increase. Prabhupada's books are his personal exchange with us. Prabhupada has present in his instructions and his books. Think about it. Prabhupada used to sleep 3-4 hours. And in the middle of the night, he used to get up and he used to be writing, dictating, translating these. For whom? For whom? You and me. For you and me. And it's as though keeping his books, not reading it is just like ignoring Prabhupada. He's put blood, sweat, and tears in these books for us. And if I don't read it, that's not right. So you're associating Prabhupada through his books, his Vani. So it's a guiding line. Even if we find some aspect of philosophy difficult to understand, we should not give up. When we keep reading it multiple times, slowly, we will be able to understand. So it's not ki ek bari, I have read the Bhagavatam now. I've read the Bhagavad Gita now. I've read Prabhupada Leelamrit. There are so many Chaitanya. There are so many scriptures. It's a lifelong process, just as we do japa, reading. And it supports, if you see the previous slide, it supports all these activities. Thank you, Prabhu's Matajis. This is the morning walk from Srila Prabhupada. Without preaching, Prabhupada says, without understanding philosophy, you cannot keep your strength. Everyone should be thoroughly well conversed with the philosophy which we are putting. That means you must read thoroughly every day. So many books we have got. And Bhagavata is so perfect that any verse you read, you get a new enlightenment. Read thoroughly. Thank you, everybody. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Madhupati Prabhu.
Thank you, Amritananda Prabhu. I'd like to wish you all a safe and Krishna conscious day ahead. Very auspicious time of this Navaratri time. Wish you all a happy Navaratri. In Navaratri, where we can just remember the energy of the Supreme Lord headed by Srimati Radharani. 60 cities, Kala Sadhana Sakti Eka, Chaheva, Vibharti Durga, Ichhami, that word, Govindamadi Purusham, Tamham Bhajami. Thousands of goddesses of fortune are serving the Supreme Lord. Right. That Govinda, we offer our thousands and thousands of obeisances. Okay. We like to offer our prayers to the Supreme Lord by chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Narsingho, Jai Narsingho, Jai Jai Narsingho, Prahladesh, Jaya Padma, Maka Padma Bringa, Ugra
Viram Mahavishnu Jalantam
Sarvatomukam, Narsingham, Vishnu Bhadram, Mithyamitramaham. Narsingha Bhagwan ki Jai, Prahlad Maharaj ki Jai. Let's offer our humble obeisances to all the Samal Vaishnavas. Vancha kalpatarva kripa sindhu bhayavacha Danam pavanebhayo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Vaishnavinda ki jai. Granthar Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you,
Thank you,
Amritananda
everyone.
Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. All
Krishna.
Krishna. Prabhupada.